By the one and only Stevie Wong, and it's quite a treat to have him a part of our year-end festivities here. Welcome back to Idaho.
Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. I just wanted to visit for a minute on what got you into announcing originally.
Well, it was originally Gary Johnson's fault. I was in college at Green River Community College, which happened to be up by the racetrack.
Right.
And I worked with him in an auto parts store in Sumner as just a parts runner, you know, tear this engine apart guy, you know, just a worker. And I was at the time also going to trade school to be a radio disc jockey. So Gary kind of put two and two together. Didn't really, I mean, he thought of it. I wasn't thinking that. He originally just said, I'm the announcer at Seattle International Raceway, and I've seen you around up there with your Camaro and stuff. He says, now that your car's broke, you could still come out to the races and hang out with me and my daughter in the tower. And I thought, well, okay, he's free. You can just hang out. Cool, I can go to the races for nothing. That's awesome. So anyway, how it worked out is I went up there a couple of times and just sat in the tower, talked to Gary off the mic, and you know, kind of just shot the breeze and had a little fun.
Right.
And then there was only one table in the middle of the room, and it had a pile of National Dragsters sitting there on the table. Gary walks over, sets the mic in front of me, and picks up a National Dragster, says, I'm going to be gone for a little bit. Went into the restroom and said, you're going to have to do this because Nikki can't do it. She's running the clocks. I'm like, oh, God. Okay, so here we go. And that's how it started.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Over the years, how did you ever find your way coming to Firebird Raceway? What was your first gig here?
Well, it was one of the igniters for sure. And every time I had been to a new racetrack, you get these kind of butterflies like, what am I walking into? Am I going to get along with everybody? You know, well, how is it going to work?
Right.
That dynamic. And I can remember walking in the door of the old tower, up the rickety steps and into the tower, thinking to myself, okay, here we go. And I walked in. Happened that you were up there with your dad. You were announcing, and I walked in, and Gene Bergstrom was there too. He was the division director at the time, and actually was the one that hired me as the Division 6 announcer. And so I walk into the tower, and you were announcing, and your dad introduced himself, shook my hand, and I can remember taking over from you and thinking to myself, wow, this is some pressure right here. Because I don't know, I didn't really, other than working with you at the national events a couple of times, we didn't have the relationship at that time that we do now.
Right.
And so I was a little nervous to be quite honest.
Wow.
But it was something that your dad made me feel really welcome. He had that kind of handshake that was like, welcome to Firebird Raceway. I'll never forget him doing that.
That's
it was really cool. First guy I met.
You and I share one thing in common.
Only one?
Not only announcing, I guess, more than one.
Okay.
But the fact that Gene Bergstrom and, in my case, Jim Rockstead were able to open the door for me to get an opportunity to announce an NHRA national event. Before that time, I had made many trips to Seattle and Portland and announced a variety of major events for Jim. And in 1989, I believe was the year, was the first time I got to work a national event. I think it was the first time you and I worked together.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah.
And as I recall, the NHRA, it was an intimidating thing for me initially because you're going to the big leagues and you've got literally everybody there. I mean, from Steve Gibbs to appearances at some of the national events by Wally Parks, Bernie Partridge. You go down this list of
Buster
people.
Couch,
all the who's who, right?
Right.
And here we had to get front and center. I'm sure you remember the day.
Oh, I absolutely do. For me, it was 1988, and how it worked out was the week of the national event. I bought a ticket and I was going to go as a spectator. And Gene Bergstrom called me and he said, "What are you doing this weekend?" Going to the races, just going to hang out. No, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, Dave McClellan's going to be a day and a half late. He's got other commitments he's got to take care of, and they need someone to help in the tower. And I'm like, and I'm just getting over a cold.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, so what do I do? And he explained the process of where you go for credentials and that whole thing. And I'll tell you what, that feeling of, oh my God, what have I got myself into, and can I even do this?
Right.
And I'll never forget, I go up there and I have my first stint, and Bob Fry was up there, and
right.
he introduced himself and everything. And Buster Couch was doing monitor. I didn't know what that was. He was just sitting
right.
at the other end of the counter, right? Buster Couch, the late Buster Couch, the starter, was doing monitor up in the tower. And I clicked the mic off and was getting ready to hand it over to Fry. And Buster looked at me and he said, "Son, you're not bad at this stuff." And I thought to myself, wow. He says, "What's your favorite class?" I told him Pro Stock. He says, "Tell you what, come with me." He took me right down to the starting.
Did he really?
Yeah, yeah. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
It was really cool.
What a moment in time. Well, we've shared a lot of memories together, and that's something that is registered in the back of my brain and has been for a long time. We've worked a lot of events, a whole variety, divisionals, nationals, major independent events, but I have to, out of curiosity, I have to ask you, what was your thoughts the first time we invited you to come over to the Halloween Classic?
Honestly, I felt very privileged. Only because I had heard from a lot of other racers and everybody that ever came to the Halloween Classic, "Man, you got to get over there. That's like the coolest thing ever." Wow, wonder why I've never been invited. That was until you invited me. I thought,
right.
wow, wonder why maybe I should go over there. You know, and that was always in my mind until I get the phone call from you.
Right.
And I think to myself, wow, this is cool. My first Halloween Classic. I don't even know what I'm in for, but you know, it ended up to be really cool because the Halloween Classic is like no other drag race I've ever participated in.
Right.
Because it has so many different facets. Yeah, it's the racing that brings us together, but you've got all the other facets, the trick-or-treating for the kids and everything else. And
Right.
I'll never forget the first time you called me and said, "You're coming over for the Halloween Classic. We're going to pay you, and you're going to help me announce and do the whole thing." And I thought to myself, wow, I may have actually arrived. This is cool. You know, I'd always wanted to, never got the invite, and then you finally did, and I was like, this is cool. And I remember walking in, and you saying to me, "Wait till Saturday." I said, "Okay, what's Saturday mean?" And you went down the list of the trick-or-treating and the costume contest, and he says, and the biggest thing you said to me was, "We got to dress you up." And I'm like, okay. And I said, "Well, what are you going to dress me up as?" He says, "Well, it happened to be every 5 years you do a team
right.
thing." And I remember you handing me a plastic bag, a Firebird bag, with a blonde wig
right.
and a tie-dyed T-shirt and some puka shell necklace or some other garb. And I was like, oh, cool, we're hippies. This is awesome. So we get on all our stuff. Everybody's dressed up like hippies. And that happened to be the year that Bob Fry came to
right.
the Halloween Classic.
Right.
I'll never forget him walking in the door in the old tower up the rickety steps and opening the door and looking at me and going, "Oh my God." That's what he looked right at me and went, "Oh my God."
That's killer. Well, the Classic's got a lot of history behind it. And I just want to say, on behalf of the whole new family, thank you for all the years of helping us at making our track what it is today. You're a big part of it. And on behalf of everybody, my brothers and the whole family, thank you so much for being a part of it.
Well, Scott, I don't know really what to say other than thank you.
You bet.
It's been a privilege. It's been fun. It's been an honor. And it all really kind of started, and I'll never forget this. I said it earlier. The first time I came to Firebird, the first person to say hello was your dad.
Yeah.
That was awesome. He had that kind of handshake, and welcome to Firebird. I'll never forget that.
Fitting.